Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach, and on this channel I mostly review science fiction and fantasy books, but sometimes delve into comics, manga, personal development, and a little of everything in between. But today I am deeply in the fantasy genre with maybe a little hint of science fiction because I am reviewing and sharing my thoughts on the second book of the Shadow of the Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett, and that is A Drop of Corruption. So this is the follow-up to Robert Jackson Bennett's first book, The Tainted Cup, which honestly really surprised me after picking up just based on the strength of the reviews and seeing it mentioned everywhere a couple months ago, not really knowing what it was other than it's just fantasy. I was pleasantly surprised after initially getting turned off a bit because it starts off as a murder mystery, and when I was reading it I was not really sure I wanted to read a murder mystery, even though yes, it starts off on a very fantastical murder mystery, so sort of a spoiler but not really because it happens literally in the very first couple pages about a person dying by a tree. So a rather interesting premise, and then as you get into the world, the first book completely blew me away. It was just so imaginative, the writing was so good, and apparently yes, I love thrillers. It was such a thrill ride to solve this murder mystery. And here in the second book, Jackson Bennett is following up with a masterful sequel, and Anna and Din are back. They are investigating another mystery, and this time it is a drop of corruption. So what does that mean? If you know the first book, you know it's very biological in the kind of fantasy world that Bennett employs here, I guess you could say. And in this novel, we travel to the kingdom of Yarrowdale, which is way off on the fringe of the Empire, and our two intrepid investigators are investigating another murder mystery. But also, what is really cool and what works for me here was, yes, it expands on this idea of Empire and how they're agents and this border kind of town that wants to become part of the Empire, but they don't really see maybe the benefit of joining. And so there's a little bit of political intrigue, I guess you could say, of this, empires and different countries fighting for, not really fighting, but just politicking, I guess, of the benefits of joining this conglomerate, this empire. So that was a very pleasant surprise to enjoy that. And then, of course, for me, who's really big on world building, yes, we definitely dive more into this world that was set up so well in the first book, The Tainted Cup, where we learn about this biological sort of magic system based on these Leviathan, these kaiju titans that are ravaging the land, but also being harvested and used in sort of the body modification and augmentation that happens in the series that gives our heroes slash protagonists and antagonists their powers, I guess you could say, or just, the modifications. So it's a very interesting world, and we go into that way more deeper here. My favorite scenes were, yes, when we were learning about the world. I think my favorite part of the book was the Shroud. So the Shroud is this not really off-world, but off-land research facility. So it's off on the shore in the water, and it's where they process some of the Leviathan materials to create these different augmentation features. So it's very interesting to see kind of the science that's happening here and some of the other hints of types of augmentations, I guess you could say. I'm trying to be very vague here, that occur throughout the Empire as Din kind of investigates this aspect of them connected to the larger murder that he's investigating. So very, very cool stuff. So we definitely delve into the lore. That was super pro for me, I guess, if you now kind of move into the pros and cons section. Another pro is definitely the lack of setup that was needed in a good way from the first one. So the first book has that first book syndrome, which I personally love. That's why I read a lot of first books, because I love learning about the world where the author is explaining the magic system, the politics, and you getting all this set up and just really easing into the world. And I love that world building, that lore building. But here in the second book, we already know kind of the ground rules that happens in the series Shadow of the Leviathan. We know pretty much how the magic, I don't know if you could say the magic, but the people modification system works. We know a bit of the politics, that the Empire, where Din works, where Anna works, how they fit into the larger politics and kind of military class, I guess you could say. So with that out of the way, it just leaves room for Bennett to really delve into the murder mystery that they're investigating and expand on the world, as I mentioned, through the politics side of Yarrow and how they fit in the Empire, and then also the world building side when we learn all about some other aspects of these modifications. So really great things there. We learn about the Leviathans, and then especially towards the end and towards the second half, like maybe final third of the book, we learned a lot about Anna, which was absolutely the best part of the book for me. I love Anna a lot. I mean, obviously Din is great. Din is a great character, but in the first book, we learned a lot about Din. We learned about how his mind works, I guess you could say, and how his augmentations themselves work. And we didn't get so much about Anna. She was more the mentor figure, and that she was there, but she was established, and we didn't really know what was going on with her. But here in the second book, especially at the end, we get some pretty big reveals. Well, I guess you could say it's not a reveal outright, but it's definitely hinting strongly at what we think is going on with, not really going on with her, but her past, I guess you could say. There's some very great world building around Anna and how she is connected to something even larger than herself. So it really sets up an explosive third book. I absolutely love the ending. I thought the ending was amazing. The last couple reveals towards the end, not the ending itself, but towards the end of the book, everything. While the murder mystery, okay, now we'll get maybe the cons. While the murder mystery itself kind of gets resolved to, I guess, an as expected conclusion, the Anna reveals more than make up for that, because as that winds down, we sort of, I guess you could say, an epilogue happens where we learn a bit more about Anna. She reveals some things, and yeah, it was great. So the negatives, I guess, in general, the only negative, because I love this book, was maybe how similar the structure was, in the sense that it's also a murder mystery. Not that the structure was exactly beat for beat the same, but in the first book, we have Din investigating a murder mystery. In the second book, a murder mystery happens, but in a different kingdom, different setting, but he's still sent on his job, which is this investigator role, to figure out what is happening with this specific murder. So the core structure of the book remains the same, but I guess to spin this as a positive, that allows Bennett to use this framework to delve into his other reveals. And as he goes and navigates this murder mystery, we learn so much more. And because this murder mystery happens in a totally different location with some different things, and it is a different circumstance, but it has that core structure of an investigative heist, I guess, to tie it all together. So it's sort of a con, I guess you could say, because it's similar, but it's a pro because it allows the author to use that structure to his advantage. And yes, the pros way outweigh the cons. We get so much in this book, and as I said, it sets up the third book so well that I highly recommend this series. If you take anything from this review, other than obviously I hope you can tell that I love the book, I love the series, I love Anna and Din, that do check it out. If you haven't checked out the first one, it is great. Obviously, if you don't like the first one, I don't know if the second one will, win you back over, because it's the same audiobook narrator. Well, if you listen to audiobook like me, the audiobook narrator is amazing. That also maybe adds to my experience, but the structure is the same. So if you love the first one, you're going to love the second one even more. And how can you not love the first one? The first one was great. It won, right, the Hugo Award. It just won some awards. Even though it's been out for a while, it is a great book, a great series. I highly, highly recommend you check out the whole Shadow of the Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett. The first book, The Tainted Cup, and in here in book 2, please check out A Drop of Corruption. It is well worth your time. So thanks for watching this review, and have a great day.